Maya Rodriguez had been living on the streets of Phoenix for 3 months. At 17 years old, she carried everything she owned in a torn backpack that had seen better days. Her dark hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, and her clothes bore the dust and wear of someone who slept wherever she could find shelter. The summer heat in Arizona was brutal, reaching temperatures that could kill. Maya had learned to move during the early morning hours and late evening, finding shade during the dangerous middle of the day. She knew every underpass, every abandoned building, and every spot where the police wouldn't bother her. Maya wasn't always homeless. She had grown up in a small apartment with her grandmother, Rosa, who raised her after her parents died in a car accident when she was just 8. Rosa worked 2 jobs to keep them afloat, cleaning offices at night and working at a laundromat during the day. Despite their struggles, Rosa made sure Maya went to school and had dreams of becoming a veterinarian. Everything changed 6 months ago when Rosa suffered a massive heart attack at work. Maya rushed to the hospital, but it was too late. With no other family and no money to pay rent, Maya was forced onto the streets. The state tried to place her in foster care, but Maya had heard too many horror stories. She ran away and learned to survive on her own. The city of Phoenix had a large homeless population, and Maya quickly learned the unwritten rules. Stay invisible during the day, avoid certain areas where gangs operated, and never trust anyone completely. She found odd jobs when she could, washing dishes at small restaurants or helping elderly people carry groceries. The money barely covered food, and she often went to bed hungry. Maya had a natural love for animals that Rosa had always encouraged. Even living on the streets, she would share her meager food with stray cats and dogs. Other homeless people thought she was crazy for giving away food she desperately needed, but Maya couldn't help herself. Animals were innocent and deserved kindness. On this particular morning in late July, the temperature was already climbing toward what meteorologists predicted would be a record-breaking day. Maya had spent the night in an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city. She woke up at dawn, her body stiff from sleeping on the concrete floor. The building offered some protection from the elements, but it was far from comfortable. Maya gathered her few belongings and headed toward the city center. She had heard about a construction site where workers sometimes threw away perfectly good food from their lunchboxes. It was a long walk, but Maya was used to walking miles every day just to survive. As she walked through a residential neighborhood, Maya noticed how quiet everything was. Most people were smart enough to stay indoors during the extreme heat warnings. Air conditioners hummed constantly, and she could see the shimmer of heat waves rising from the pavement. Maya carried a small water bottle that she refilled whenever she found a public fountain or sympathetic business owner. Water was precious, and she had learned to ration it carefully. Dehydration was a constant threat for someone living on the streets during an Arizona summer. The neighborhood she was walking through was middle class, with small houses and well-maintained yards. Maya tried to stay in the shadows and move quickly. Homeowners in these areas were quick to call the police if they saw someone who looked homeless walking through their streets. As Maya turned onto a quiet side street, she noticed something unusual. There was a police car parked on the side of the road, but it was positioned strangely, partially hidden behind some large desert plants. The car's doors were open, which was odd given the extreme heat. Maya's first instinct was to turn around and find another route. She had learned to avoid police whenever possible. While she had never been arrested, she knew that being homeless often meant being treated as a criminal. Officers would sometimes tell her to move along or threaten to take her to juvenile detention. But something about the scene didn't feel right. Maya had developed sharp instincts during her months on the street, and those instincts were telling her that something was wrong. The police car was too still, too quiet. She couldn't see any movement around it, and that was unusual for an active police situation. Maya crept closer, using the sparse desert vegetation and parked cars for cover. As she got nearer, she could hear something that made her blood run cold. It was the sound of someone in distress, muffled voices that sounded weak and desperate. Her heart started racing as she realized this wasn't a normal police stop or investigation. Someone was in trouble, and despite every survival instinct telling her to run away, Maya found herself moving closer to investigate. The neighborhood was completely quiet except for the humming of air conditioners and the distant sound of traffic from the main road. Maya looked around to see if there were any other people nearby who might help, but the streets were empty. Everyone was inside. protected from the deadly heat that was already becoming unbearable, even though it was still early in the morning. Maya had always been the type of person who couldn't walk away when someone needed help. Rosa had raised her to believe that doing the right thing was more important than staying safe. Even living on the streets hadn't changed that part of her character, though it had made her more cautious about when and how she helped others. As she approached the police car, Maya could see that the situation was far worse than she had imagined. What she discovered would test every ounce of courage she had developed during her months of surviving on the streets, and her actions in the next few minutes would change not only her own life, but the lives of others in ways she could never have imagined. The scorching Arizona sun was just beginning to show its full power, and Maya knew that in this heat, every minute could mean the difference between life and death. Maya approached the police car with careful steps, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. What she saw when she got close enough made her gasp and cover her mouth in shock. 2 police officers were tied up behind their own vehicle, bound with rope and duct tape over their mouths. Next to them were 2 police dogs, also restrained with rope and muzzles that prevented them from barking. The officers were Officer Jennifer Martinez, a 10-year veteran of the Phoenix Police Department, and Officer David Chen, who had been on the force for 7 years. Both were conscious but clearly suffering from the extreme heat. Their uniforms were soaked with sweat, and Maya could see the desperation in their eyes as they struggled against their restraints. The police dogs, a German Shepherd named Rex and a Belgian Malinois named Luna, were both highly trained K9 units. Rex was Officer Martinez's partner, and Luna worked with Officer Chen. Both dogs were panting heavily, their tongues hanging out as they tried to cope with the rising temperature. The muzzles prevented them from opening their mouths properly, making it even harder for them to regulate their body temperature. Maya quickly looked around to make sure no one was watching before rushing to the officers. Her hands shook as she tried to remove the duct tape from Officer Martinez's mouth, being as gentle as possible. The adhesive had been on for what looked like hours, and Maya could see it had irritated the officer's skin. When the tape came off, Officer Martinez gasped for air and immediately started talking, her voice hoarse and weak. She explained that she and Officer Chen had responded to a call about suspicious activity in the area around midnight. When they arrived to investigate, they were ambushed by 3 armed men who had been waiting for them. The criminals had been planning to steal the police car and use it for a robbery across town. They figured that having a police vehicle would help them avoid suspicion and get close to their target. But when they realized the officers had called in their location before being captured, they panicked and decided to abandon their plan. Instead of letting the officers go, the criminals tied them up and left them in the desert heat as a distraction. They figured it would take hours for anyone to find the officers, giving them time to escape the area completely. They had taken the officers' radios, cell phones, and weapons, leaving them completely helpless. Maya worked quickly to untie Officer Martinez while listening to the story. Her fingers were nimble from months of having to quickly pack and unpack her belongings, and she was able to free the officer's hands within minutes. Officer Martinez immediately started working on her own leg restraints while Maya moved to help Officer Chen. Officer Chen was in worse condition than his partner. He had a medical condition that made him more susceptible to heat exhaustion, and Maya could see that he was becoming dangerously dehydrated. His lips were cracked and his skin was flushed red. Maya knew from her time on the streets that these were serious warning signs. While Maya worked on freeing Officer Chen, Officer Martinez focused on the dogs. Rex and Luna were both showing signs of severe heat stress. Dogs couldn't sweat like humans, so they relied on panting to cool themselves down, with the muzzles restricting their breathing. Both animals were in immediate danger of heat stroke. Maya had learned a lot about animals during her childhood dreams of becoming a veterinarian, and she had continued learning by watching and helping stray animals on the streets. She knew that heat stroke in dogs could be fatal within minutes, and both Rex and Luna were already showing dangerous symptoms. Officer Martinez managed to remove Rex's muzzle first, and the dog immediately began panting more freely. Maya carefully worked on Luna's restraints, talking softly to the dog to keep her calm. Luna's breathing was rapid and shallow, and Maya could feel the animal's heart racing. As soon as Luna's muzzle was removed, Maya used some of her precious water to wet the dog's mouth and tongue. She knew that getting the animals cooled down was just as important as freeing them from their restraints. Officer Martinez was doing the same for Rex, using water from her patrol car's emergency kit. The sun was rising higher, and the temperature was climbing rapidly. Maya could feel the heat radiating up from the pavement, and she knew they needed to get everyone to safety quickly. Officer Chen was now free but was having trouble standing up. The hours of being tied up in the heat had taken a serious toll on his body. Maya looked around and realized they were still in a very vulnerable position. The criminals could return or other dangers could appear. The officers were in no condition to defend themselves, and Maya knew that she was now responsible for getting everyone to safety. Officer Martinez tried to radio for help, but their radio equipment had been damaged by the criminals. The patrol car's air conditioning had also been sabotaged, leaving them without a way to cool down. Maya realized that she would need to find another solution. Despite being homeless and having every reason to distrust police officers, Maya felt a strong responsibility to help. These officers and their dogs were in life-threatening danger, and she was the only one who could save them. The situation was testing every survival skill she had learned on the streets. Maya's mind raced as she tried to figure out the best way to get help. The neighborhood was still quiet, with most residents staying indoors due to the extreme heat warning. She would need to find someone willing to help, or find a way to get the officers to medical attention herself. The clock was ticking, and Maya knew that in Arizona's summer heat, every minute could mean the difference between life and death for the officers and their loyal K9 partners. Maya knew she had to act fast. Officer Chen was showing serious signs of heat exhaustion, and both dogs were still in danger despite being freed from their muzzles. The temperature was already over 100 degrees, and climbing rapidly toward what weather forecasters had predicted would be a deadly 118 degrees by noon. Maya made a quick decision. She told Officer Martinez to stay with Officer Chen and the dogs while she ran to get help. Despite her fear of dealing with strangers, Maya knew she had to find someone with a working phone and air conditioning. Every house in the neighborhood had air conditioning, but Maya needed to find someone who would answer their door and help a homeless teenager. Maya ran to the nearest house, a small ranch-style home with a well-maintained yard. She pounded on the front door, her heart racing as she tried to think of what to say. When no one answered, she ran to the next house. Again, no answer. Maya realized that many people might be afraid to open their doors to a stranger, especially someone who clearly looked homeless. At the third house, Maya heard movement inside. An elderly woman's voice called through the door, asking what Maya wanted. Maya quickly explained that there were police officers in medical emergency just down the street. She tried to speak clearly and calmly despite her panic, knowing that the woman would be more likely to help if Maya didn't sound dangerous. The woman, Mrs. Eleanor Patterson, was initially suspicious. At 73 years old, she had lived in the neighborhood for over 40 years and had learned to be cautious. But something in Maya's voice convinced her that this was a real emergency. Eleanor opened the door and saw a young girl who was clearly desperate and telling the truth. Maya quickly explained the situation. While Eleanor called 911, the dispatcher said that emergency services were already overwhelmed with heat-related calls, and it might take 20 minutes for an ambulance to arrive. Eleanor immediately offered to drive Maya back to the officers, and they grabbed bottles of water and ice packs from her freezer. When they returned to the police car, the situation had gotten worse. Officer Chen was now barely conscious, and Luna was showing signs of severe heat stroke. Her gums were bright red, and she was drooling excessively. Rex was in better condition but was still suffering from the extreme heat. Eleanor took one look at the situation and immediately understood the severity. As a retired nurse, she had dealt with heat emergencies before. She instructed Maya to start pouring small amounts of cool water on the dogs' paw pads and bellies, while she focused on Officer Chen. Maya had never been trained in emergency care, but she followed Eleanor's instructions carefully. She had learned to stay calm under pressure during her months on the streets, and those skills served her well now. Maya spoke softly to both dogs, trying to keep them calm while cooling them down gradually. Eleanor used her nursing experience to assess Officer Chen's condition. His body temperature was dangerously high, and he was showing signs of heat stroke. She had Maya help her move him into the shade of Eleanor's car, while they waited for the ambulance. Eleanor used wet towels to cool his neck and wrists, focusing on areas where major blood vessels were close to the skin. Officer Martinez was in better condition than her partner, but she was also suffering from heat exhaustion. Maya gave her small sips of water and helped her sit in Eleanor's air-conditioned car. The officer kept trying to radio for backup, but the equipment remained damaged. Maya noticed that Luna was not responding well to the cooling efforts. The dog's breathing was becoming more labored, and Maya realized they needed to do something more aggressive. She remembered reading that dogs in heat stroke needed immediate cooling, but it had to be done carefully to avoid shock. With Eleanor's permission, Maya used the garden hose from the nearby house to create a gentle stream of cool water. She focused on Luna's paw pads and belly, avoiding the dog's head and back to prevent too rapid cooling. Rex was responding better and was able to drink small amounts of water. As Maya worked with the dog, she couldn't help but think about all the stray animals she had helped during her time on the streets. She had always felt a special connection with animals, understanding their suffering in a way that came from her own experiences of vulnerability and survival. Eleanor was impressed by Maya's instinctive understanding of how to help the dogs. Despite having no formal training, Maya seemed to know exactly what to do. Eleanor later learned that Maya had been studying veterinary care books at the public library during her time homeless, still holding on to her childhood dream, despite her circumstances. The sound of sirens finally filled the air as paramedics and additional police units arrived on the scene. Maya's first instinct was to run away before the authorities started asking questions about her situation. She had learned to avoid official attention whenever possible, but Officer Martinez grabbed Maya's hand before she could leave. Despite her own condition, the officer wanted to make sure Maya was recognized for her heroic actions. Officer Martinez had been a police officer long enough to know that Maya's quick thinking and brave actions had saved their lives. The paramedics immediately took over care of Officer Chen and began working to bring his body temperature down. A veterinary emergency team had been called for the dogs, and they arrived within minutes to assess Rex and Luna's conditions. Maya tried to step back and let the professionals work, but Eleanor kept her close by. The elderly woman had been amazed by Maya's maturity and courage, and she sensed that this young girl had been through more hardships than most adults. Eleanor made sure Maya stayed hydrated and got medical attention for minor heat exposure. As the scene filled with emergency vehicles and personnel, Maya began to realize that her decision to help had set something in motion that would change her life forever. The police officers she had saved were not going to let her disappear back into the shadows of homelessness without making sure she received the recognition and help she deserved. The paramedics worked quickly to stabilize Officer Chen while Maya watched anxiously from Eleanor's side. The veteran emergency medical team confirmed what Eleanor had suspected. Officer Chen was suffering from severe heat stroke and would need immediate hospital treatment. His core body temperature had reached dangerous levels, and without Maya's intervention, he could have died within the hour. Maya felt a mix of relief and worry as she watched the ambulance drive away with Officer Chen. She had never been responsible for saving someone's life before, and the weight of what had happened was beginning to sink in. Officer Martinez, though still recovering, insisted on staying at the scene to give her statement to the investigating officers. The veterinary team was still working with Rex and Luna. Both dogs were being treated with IV fluids and cooling therapy. Luna's condition had been more serious, but the quick action Maya had taken with the cool water had prevented permanent damage. The veterinarian, Dr. Sarah Thompson, told Maya that her instinctive care had been exactly right. Dr. Thompson was particularly impressed when Maya explained how she had focused on cooling the dog's paw pads and bellies rather than their heads. This showed an understanding of canine physiology that was unusual for someone with no formal training. When Maya mentioned her dream of becoming a veterinarian, Dr. Thompson's interest was clearly piqued. Detective Roberto Sanchez arrived to investigate the crime scene and interview everyone involved. He was a 20-year veteran of the police force who specialized in cases involving attacks on police officers. As he spoke with Officer Martinez and Eleanor, he kept glancing at Maya with curiosity and respect. Maya felt nervous talking to Detective Sanchez. In her experience, conversations with police officers usually ended with her being told to move along or being threatened with arrest for loitering. But Detective Sanchez spoke to her with the same respect he showed Eleanor, asking detailed questions about what she had seen and done. Officer Martinez made sure Detective Sanchez understood that Maya was a hero. Despite her own ordeal, Officer Martinez took time to explain exactly how Maya had saved their lives. She described Maya's quick thinking, her knowledge of animal care, and her courage in helping despite having every reason to avoid police contact. As Maya told her story, she found herself revealing more about her situation than she had intended. Detective Sanchez was skilled at interviewing witnesses, and he gently encouraged Maya to explain how she happened to be in the neighborhood so early in the morning. Eventually, Maya admitted that she was homeless and had been sleeping in an abandoned warehouse. Instead of the negative reaction Maya expected, Detective Sanchez and Officer Martinez exchanged meaningful looks. They both knew that homeless youth were particularly vulnerable, and they were amazed that someone in Maya's situation had risked her own safety to help others. Officer Martinez later said it was one of the most selfless acts she had witnessed in her 10 years of police work. Eleanor had been listening to Maya's story with growing concern and admiration. As a retired nurse, Eleanor had worked with many young people over the years, and she recognized something special in Maya's character. When she learned that Maya was living on the streets, Eleanor made a decision that would surprise everyone, including herself. Eleanor approached Detective Sanchez and Officer Martinez with a proposal. She wanted to offer Maya a place to stay while they figured out a more permanent solution. Eleanor's children lived in other states, and she had been feeling lonely in her large house. She told the officers that Maya had already proven herself to be trustworthy and caring. Maya was stunned by Eleanor's offer. After months of being treated as invisible or unwanted, here was a complete stranger offering her a home. Maya's eyes filled with tears as she tried to process this unexpected kindness. She had become so used to rejection that she almost couldn't believe Eleanor was serious. Detective Sanchez explained that while Eleanor's offer was generous, there were legal procedures that needed to be followed. Maya was still a minor and the state had custody obligations. However, he promised to expedite the paperwork and work with social services to explore all options for Maya's care. Officer Martinez, despite her own medical needs, insisted on personally ensuring that Maya received proper recognition for her heroic actions. She contacted her supervisor, Captain Williams, to report not just the crime but Maya's incredible response. Captain Williams had served on the force for 25 years and was known for recognizing civilian contributions to public safety. While they waited for social services to arrive, Maya sat with Eleanor in her air-conditioned car, still trying to process everything that had happened. Eleanor shared stories about her own life, including how she had overcome challenges as a young woman. Maya found herself opening up about her grandmother Rosa and her dreams of working with animals. Eleanor learned that Maya had been maintaining excellent grades before becoming homeless and had been accepted to several colleges with partial scholarships. Maya's homelessness had prevented her from pursuing her education, but Eleanor was amazed to learn that Maya had been continuing to study using library books and free online resources. The social worker who arrived, Ms. Jennifer Walsh, was immediately impressed by Maya's maturity and the circumstances of her heroic actions. Ms. Walsh had been working with homeless youth for over 15 years, and she rarely encountered someone who had maintained such a positive outlook despite difficult circumstances. Mrs. Walsh explained that Eleanor's offer to provide temporary housing was exactly the kind of community support that made a difference for youth aging out of the system. With proper background checks and court approval, Eleanor could potentially become Maya's legal guardian or provide long-term foster care. Maya learned that her quick thinking and brave actions had created opportunities she never could have imagined. The police department was already discussing ways to recognize her heroism, and Dr. Thompson had mentioned possible scholarship opportunities for students interested in veterinary medicine. As the sun reached its peak intensity, Maya realized that this morning had changed everything. She had started the day as a homeless teenager focused simply on survival, and now she was surrounded by people who wanted to help her build a real future. The same courage that had helped her survive on the streets had led her to save lives and discover that there were still good people in the world who believed in her potential. News of Maya's heroic rescue spread quickly through the Phoenix Police Department. Captain Williams arrived at the scene personally to meet the young woman who had saved 2 of his officers and their K9 partners. As a 25-year veteran, Captain Williams had seen many acts of courage, but he was particularly moved by Maya's selflessness, despite her own difficult circumstances. Captain Williams spoke with Maya privately, thanking her for her actions and learning more about her background. When he discovered that Maya had been living on the streets for months while maintaining her studies and helping others, he was deeply impressed. He immediately began making phone calls to ensure Maya received proper recognition and support. The police department's public information officer, Lieutenant Susan Rodriguez, arrived to document Maya's story. The department wanted to share Maya's heroism with the community, but they were careful to protect her privacy and ensure that any publicity would benefit rather than harm her. Lieutenant Rodriguez had experience working with young people and recognized the importance of handling Maya's situation sensitively. Meanwhile, at the hospital, Officer Chen was recovering well thanks to the quick medical intervention. His doctors confirmed that without Maya's actions, he would have suffered permanent damage or death from heat stroke. Officer Chen insisted on calling Maya personally to thank her, even though he was still weak from his ordeal. Rex and Luna were also recovering at the veterinary hospital. Both dogs had responded well to treatment and were expected to make full recoveries. Dr. Thompson made sure Maya knew that her immediate care had been crucial in preventing serious complications for both animals. The veterinarian was so impressed with Maya's natural ability that she began making inquiries about educational opportunities. Eleanor worked with Ms. Walsh to begin the legal process of providing Maya with temporary housing. Eleanor's background check came back clean and her references were outstanding. As a retired nurse with no criminal history and strong community ties, Eleanor was considered an ideal temporary guardian. The process would take several days, but Ms. Walsh was optimistic about the outcome. Detective Sanchez continued his investigation into the attack on Officers Martinez and Chen. Security cameras from nearby businesses had captured images of the three suspects fleeing the scene. The FBI was also involved because attacking police officers was a federal crime. Maya's detailed description of what she had found helped investigators understand the timeline of events. Maya spent the afternoon at Eleanor's house, experiencing luxuries she had almost forgotten about: a hot shower, clean clothes, and a comfortable bed. Eleanor had called her daughter in California to tell her about Maya, and the entire family was supportive of Eleanor's decision to help. Eleanor's daughter even offered to help with Maya's college expenses if needed. As word spread through the community, other people began reaching out to offer support. The local news station wanted to interview Maya, but Captain Williams and Ms. Walsh decided to wait until Maya was more settled and could make her own decision about publicity. They wanted to protect her from being overwhelmed while she adjusted to her new situation. Dr. Thompson called Eleanor's house that evening with exciting news. She had spoken with colleagues at the University of Arizona's veterinary program, and they were interested in meeting Maya. The university had scholarship programs specifically designed for students from challenging backgrounds who showed exceptional promise. Maya's heroic actions and her self-directed learning impressed the academic committee. Maya could hardly believe what was happening. After months of struggling just to survive each day, suddenly she was surrounded by people who believed in her potential and wanted to help her succeed. Eleanor made sure Maya understood that these opportunities came not just because of her heroic actions, but because of the character and intelligence she had shown throughout her ordeal. Officer Martinez was released from the hospital that evening and immediately asked to visit Maya at Eleanor's house. Despite her exhaustion, Officer Martinez wanted to personally thank Maya and make sure she understood the full impact of her actions. Officer Martinez brought her own daughter, who was about Maya's age, to meet the young woman who had saved her mother's life. The meeting between Maya and Officer Martinez's family was emotional. Officer Martinez's daughter, Sophia, was amazed by Maya's story and the courage she had shown. Sophia's mother had told her that Maya was a real hero, and Sophia could see why. The two girls quickly became friends, and Sophia offered to help Maya catch up on schoolwork and adjust to normal teenage life. Captain Williams called Eleanor's house to inform Maya that the police department would be holding a formal ceremony to recognize her heroism. Maya would receive the department's highest civilian award for courage and life-saving actions. The ceremony would include the mayor and other city officials, and Maya's story would be shared as an example of the positive impact one person could make. Maya felt overwhelmed by all the attention and opportunities, but Eleanor helped her understand that she deserved recognition for her actions. Eleanor reminded Maya that heroes often don't realize they're being heroic, they simply do what they believe is right. Maya's willingness to help others despite her own struggles showed the kind of character that deserved support and recognition. As Maya prepared for bed in Eleanor's comfortable guest room, she thought about how dramatically her life had changed in just one day. She had awakened that morning in an abandoned warehouse, focused only on finding food and staying safe. Now she was sleeping in a real bed, surrounded by people who cared about her future, with opportunities she had only dreamed about. Maya realized that her decision to help the officers and their dogs had been instinctive. She had acted based on the values her grandmother Rosa had taught her, that helping others was always the right thing to do, even when it was difficult or risky. Rosa would have been proud of the young woman Maya had become, and Maya felt her grandmother's presence guiding her toward this new chapter of her life. The rescue had not only saved the lives of Officers Martinez and Chen and their K9 partners, but it had also rescued Maya from a life of uncertainty and struggle. Sometimes, Maya reflected, saving others is how we save ourselves. News of Maya's heroic rescue spread quickly through the Phoenix Police Department. Captain Williams arrived at the scene personally to meet the young woman who had saved two of his officers and their K9 partners. As a 25-year veteran, Captain Williams had seen many acts of courage, but he was particularly moved by Maya's selflessness, despite her own difficult circumstances. Captain Williams spoke with Maya privately, thanking her for her actions and learning more about her background. When he discovered that Maya had been living on the streets for months while maintaining her studies and helping others, he was deeply impressed. He immediately began making phone calls to ensure Maya received proper recognition and support. The police department's public information officer, Lieutenant Susan Rodriguez, arrived to document Maya's story. The department wanted to share Maya's heroism with the community, but they were careful to protect her privacy and ensure that any publicity would benefit rather than harm her. Lieutenant Rodriguez had experience working with young people and recognized the importance of handling Maya's situation sensitively. Meanwhile, at the hospital, Officer Chen was recovering well thanks to the quick medical intervention. His doctors confirmed that without Maya's actions, he would have suffered permanent damage or death from heat stroke. Officer Chen insisted on calling Maya personally to thank her, even though he was still weak from his ordeal. Rex and Luna were also recovering at the veterinary hospital. Both dogs had responded well to treatment and were expected to make full recoveries. Dr. Thompson made sure Maya knew that her immediate care had been crucial in preventing serious complications for both animals. The veterinarian was so impressed with Maya's natural ability that she began making inquiries about educational opportunities. Eleanor worked with Ms. Walsh to begin the legal process of providing Maya with temporary housing. Eleanor's background check came back clean and her references were outstanding. As a retired nurse with no criminal history and strong community ties, Eleanor was considered an ideal temporary guardian. The process would take several days, but Ms. Walsh was optimistic about the outcome. Detective Sanchez continued his investigation into the attack on Officers Martinez and Chen. Security. Cameras from nearby businesses had captured images of the three suspects fleeing the scene. The FBI was also involved because attacking police officers was a federal crime. Maya's detailed description of what she had found helped investigators understand the timeline of events. Maya spent the afternoon at Eleanor's house, experiencing luxuries she had almost forgotten about: a hot shower, clean clothes, and a comfortable bed. Eleanor had called her daughter in California to tell her about Maya, and the entire family was supportive of Eleanor's decision to help. Eleanor's daughter even offered to help with Maya's college expenses if needed. As word spread through the community, other people began reaching out to offer support. The local news station wanted to interview Maya, but Captain Williams and Ms. Walsh decided to wait until Maya was more settled and could make her own decision about publicity. They wanted to protect her from being overwhelmed while she adjusted to her new situation. Dr. Thompson called Eleanor's house that evening with exciting news. She had spoken with colleagues at the University of Arizona's veterinary program, and they were interested in meeting Maya. The university had scholarship programs specifically designed for students from challenging backgrounds who showed exceptional promise. Maya's heroic actions and her self-directed learning impressed the academic committee. Maya could hardly believe what was happening. After months of struggling just to survive each day, suddenly she was surrounded by people who believed in her potential and wanted to help her succeed. Eleanor made sure Maya understood that these opportunities came not just because of her heroic actions, but because of the character and intelligence she had shown throughout her ordeal. Officer Martinez was released from the hospital that evening and immediately asked to visit Maya at Eleanor's house. Despite her exhaustion, Officer Martinez wanted to personally thank Maya and make sure she understood the full impact of her actions. Officer Martinez brought her own daughter, who was about Maya's age, to meet the young woman who had saved her mother's life. The meeting between Maya and Officer Martinez's family was emotional. Officer Martinez's daughter, Sophia, was amazed by Maya's story and the courage she had shown. Sophia's mother had told her that Maya was a real hero, and Sophia could see why. The two girls quickly became friends, and Sophia offered to help Maya catch up on schoolwork and adjust to normal teenage life. Captain Williams called Eleanor's house to inform Maya that the police department would be holding a formal ceremony to recognize her heroism. Maya would receive the department's highest civilian award for courage and life-saving actions. The ceremony would include the mayor and other city officials, and Maya's story would be shared as an example of the positive impact one person could make. Maya felt overwhelmed by all the attention and opportunities, but Eleanor helped her understand that she deserved recognition for her actions. Eleanor reminded Maya that heroes often don't realize they're being heroic, they simply do what they believe is right. Maya's willingness to help others despite her own struggles showed the kind of character that deserved support and recognition. As Maya prepared for bed in Eleanor's comfortable guest room, she thought about how dramatically her life had changed in just one day. She had awakened that morning in an abandoned warehouse, focused only on finding food and staying safe. Now she was sleeping in a real bed, surrounded by people who cared about her future, with opportunities she had only dreamed about. Maya realized that her decision to help the officers and their dogs had been instinctive. She had acted based on the values her grandmother Rosa had taught her, that helping others was always the right thing to do, even when it was difficult or risky. Rosa would have been proud of the young woman Maya had become, and Maya felt her grandmother's presence guiding her toward this new chapter of her life. The rescue had not only saved the lives of Officers Martinez and Chen and their K9 partners, but it had also rescued Maya from a life of uncertainty and struggle. Sometimes, Maya reflected, saving others is how we save ourselves. The day of the award ceremony arrived with perfect weather, warm but not the extreme heat that had made Maya's rescue so urgent just a month earlier. Maya stood in front of Eleanor's mirror, adjusting the new dress Eleanor had bought for the occasion. She could hardly recognize herself as the same girl who had been sleeping in abandoned buildings just weeks ago. Eleanor watched Maya with pride and emotion. In just 1 month, Maya had transformed from a homeless teenager into a confident young woman with a bright future ahead of her. Eleanor often told friends that Maya had saved her life just as much as she had saved Maya's, giving Eleanor purpose and joy she hadn't felt since her late husband passed away 5 years earlier. The ceremony was held at Phoenix City Hall, with Mayor Patricia Reeves presiding over the event. Captain Williams had ensured that all the key figures from Maya's rescue were present: Officers Martinez and Chen, Detective Sanchez, Dr. Thompson, and of course Rex and Luna, who looked magnificent in their ceremonial K9 unit gear. As Maya walked into the packed auditorium with Eleanor by her side, she was amazed to see how many people had come to honor her actions. The audience included police officers, city officials, community leaders, fellow students from her new school, and many people she had never met but who had been inspired by her story. Mayor Reeves opened the ceremony by describing the extreme heat conditions on the day of the rescue and explaining how Maya's quick thinking and brave actions had saved multiple lives. The mayor emphasized that Maya's heroism was particularly remarkable, given her own challenging circumstances at the time. Officer Martinez spoke first, her voice strong and clear as she described the terror of being trapped in the desert heat and the relief she felt when Maya appeared. She explained how Maya's immediate focus on helping the K9 officers showed both courage and remarkable knowledge of animal care. Officer Martinez's words brought tears to many eyes in the audience. Officer Chen followed, describing his medical emergency and how Maya's actions had literally saved his life. He had brought his own family to the ceremony, including his young son who had drawn a picture of Maya as a superhero. Officer Chen presented the drawing to Maya, calling her his family's guardian angel. Dr. Thompson spoke about Maya's natural talent for working with animals and her bright future in veterinary medicine. She announced that Maya had been accepted into a special summer program at the university that would allow her to gain college credit while still in high school. Dr. Thompson also revealed that Maya had helped save 3 more stray animals since the rescue, showing her continued commitment to helping others. Detective Sanchez provided an update on the criminal investigation, announcing that all 3 suspects had now been arrested and charged with multiple felonies. He credited Maya's detailed observations and testimony with helping to ensure the criminals would face justice for their crimes against the police officers. Captain Williams presented Maya with the Phoenix Police Department's Medal of Valor, the highest honor given to civilians. He explained that in 25 years of police work, he had rarely seen such selfless courage from anyone, let alone from a teenager facing her own serious challenges. The entire audience rose in a standing ovation that lasted several minutes. Mayor Reeves then presented Maya with the city's key to the city and proclaimed July 23rd as Maya Rodriguez Day in Phoenix. The mayor announced that Maya's story would be included in the city's curriculum about civic courage and community service. Several other organizations also presented awards and scholarship offers. The most emotional moment came when Maya was invited to speak. She had prepared remarks with Eleanor's help, but when she reached the podium, Maya spoke from her heart about the values her grandmother Rosa had taught her. She emphasized that her rescue of the officers was simply doing what anyone should do when they see others in need. Maya talked about how homelessness had taught her the importance of community and helping others. She explained that even when she had very little, she had always tried to help stray animals and other people in need. Maya said that true wealth came from the relationships we build and the positive impact we have on others' lives. She thanked Eleanor for giving her not just a home but a family, and she thanked the police officers for treating her with respect and dignity. Maya spoke about her dreams of becoming a veterinarian and her commitment to helping both animals and young people facing challenges similar to what she had experienced. Maya concluded by encouraging everyone in the audience to look out for vulnerable members of their community. She reminded them that heroes aren't born. They're ordinary people who choose to help others when help is needed. Maya's speech received another extended standing ovation. After the ceremony, a reception was held where Maya met many community leaders who wanted to support her continued success. She was introduced to successful professionals who offered to mentor her, business leaders who wanted to support youth programs, and educators who were excited about her academic potential. Rex and Luna were the stars of the reception, clearly enjoying the attention and treats from the guests. Maya spent time with both dogs, and it was obvious that they remembered her kindness during their rescue. Dr. Thompson noted that both dogs showed special affection for Maya, suggesting that animals have long memories for those who help them. Eleanor watched the reception with deep satisfaction, knowing that Maya was surrounded by people who believed in her future. The network of support that had formed around Maya would help ensure her continued success in school and beyond. Eleanor had gained not just a daughter figure, but an entire extended community of people committed to Maya's well-being. As the evening wound down, Maya realized that her life had come full circle. The courage that had helped her survive on the streets had led her to save others, which in turn had saved her own future. She had learned that sometimes the most important thing you can do is simply show up when others need help. Maya left the ceremony knowing that her real work was just beginning. She had opportunities now to make a difference not just through her future career as a veterinarian, but through her ongoing advocacy for homeless youth and animals in need. The scared teenager who had awakened in an abandoned warehouse was now a confident young woman ready to change the world, one act of kindness at a time. The story of Maya's rescue would continue to inspire others long after the ceremony ended, proving that heroism can come from the most unexpected places, and that every person has the power to make a difference when they choose courage over comfort.